Thank you for tuning in to Exeter TV. Exeter TV is the town's public and government access channels, available on Comcast Channels 6 and 22. Channel 6 is your channel. If you have an idea for a program, want to host your own talk show, or submit a film, we're here to get your content on television. On Channel 22, we bring you live and replay coverage of government meetings and other town updates. A third channel, Blue Hawk Media, is operated by SAU 16 and can be found on Channel 8, with all your school sports, events, and meetings. You can watch Exeter TV online at exeternh.tv, Apple TV, and on Roku. Find us on social media for extra content. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and hit the bell to get notified about live streams and new content. Tune in to our platforms every other Friday to watch the Exeter Bi-Weekly Report, with recaps of recent events, updates from town departments, and messages from nonprofits in your area. If you head to our website, exeternh.tv, we invite you to sign up to our newsletter to receive monthly updates about new content, upcoming meetings, and more. We'd like to thank you for taking the time to watch Exeter TV and hope that you tune in to our other content as well.
Thank you very much for joining us for the Pairpoint Park Stakeholders Advisory Committee meeting for January 16, 2025. I'm Steve Jones. I chair this committee, and I'm just going to move one way or the other. Which way am I going to introductions?
Dan Hohenberger.
Mary Teagle.
Devin Scarrett.
Dave Short.
Keith Whitehouse.
Amanda Kelly.
Could you please, yes, talk into a microphone. We'll pass a microphone if you need to speak into a microphone, but please just, pick it up and speak into it. Let's move on to the staff and guests we have here. Dave Sharples? Nico?
Good evening.
Yeah.
Doug Eastman.
Doug Eastman and Keith Ripple. Oh, and we have another committee member joining us. I'll introduce her because she doesn't have a microphone right now. It's Jen Martell. Okay, with that, members, next on the agenda, is there any public comment?
Keith,
Hearing,
do you want to talk about the snow thing?
I had just mentioned,
let's hand him a microphone.
sure.
Yeah.
Thank you. So you guys did a great job with the fence and replacing it with the chain link fence. However, because there's no barrier and there's no building there, when it's cold and the wind blows up the river, that whole sidewalk freezes. So the town's going to have to address that or keep salt on the side. It got really slippery. That whole section was just a sheet of ice.
Okay, thank you very much for pointing that out. Any response from staff or town?
We'll take care of it.
Let me just note that because I remembered you telling me that, Keith, when Bill Campbell and I went and did our interview with Public Works, I did make them aware of this issue. They just basically said the same thing, like, thanks, letting us know, we'll take care of it. So we'll have to keep an eye out.
And I don't mind, I can throw some salt on that too. I live right across the street. So
Well, thanks.
I do it for Sea Dog and a couple other businesses.
Yeah, Keith's been taking care of half that sidewalk, so.
I've seen you out there.
But it's also good for us to know, to keep in mind, design-wise, since it's going to be an open space with no building, this is something I never would have guessed.
Yeah.
And it's going to be
exactly.
good for us to know as we design it.
Thank you very much for bringing that to our attention. Is there any other public comment? Hearing none, let's move to the approval of the minutes. Dave Short's fantastic minutes. That's for me. You touch that.
Okay.
They'll be, I'm wrestling you. Okay. The minutes. Are there any deletions, additions, amendments to the minutes? Do I hear a motion for approval?
I'll submit a motion. I'll second.
Okay. Deb seconded. Yeah, okay. Discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, say no. So moved. Minutes are approved. Okay.
Nice job, Dave.
Yeah. Actually,
That was one of my weaker efforts.
Well,
Strong, Dave.
Actually, David, I would like to thank you. They are succinct,
Yep.
and they cover the whole meeting.
Yep.
And occasionally you put in a joke for me, which always makes me laugh out loud.
This time I had nothing.
Yeah, but, the steel-fisted, the male-fisted chairman with his gavel. Public Input Subcommittee update. Amanda, would you, first of all, let me acknowledge Anne, who I didn't acknowledge in the draft. You were an important part of this, and that was an oversight. It was not an intentional snub. And Dev and Amanda for a lot of work.
Yeah, thank you. All right, so this is very similar to how it was at the last meeting with the draft, just updated some numbers. We ended up with 751 total contributions, which I'm pretty pumped by. We had guessed 600 when I wrote draft on it, and yeah. So quite a few it's actually pretty even, all things being considered, like a big chunk online, a big chunk thanks to Mary with the election day idea, and then leaving those survey boxes out, they really did just slowly fill up with quite a few. So really happy with that. Anne did quite a few person on the street interviews, as did Dev with his holiday night where you talked to some people. And then we have 3 out of 4 or maybe 5 desired in-depth town interviews. And I put those just verbatim at the end because I thought that would be kind of the easiest way to make sure those get called out. So the methods obviously haven't changed at all. These slides haven't changed at all. They're just my way of categorizing the responses. These are the main categories of responses up at the top, and then each of the bullets represents kind of the typical responses within that category. If it's bolded, it means it got quite a few responses. 5 or more people called that out. And so this is just a way for you to see a little bit of the drilled down kind of language and details of what people told me. And then as we move through, we get to the top 10 where I give you the breakdown of exactly out of that 700 and something people, what were their top 10 and what % of people liked each of those. So this is the final numbers. Seems like from last time, maybe plants increased a little bit and the overlook increased a little bit, and the water feature and evening lighting may have decreased a little bit. But other than that, it's pretty much the same as it was.
Do you have the top 10 in here?
Should be, yeah. That should be.
It's slide number 10. So you have to go forward.
It's on a back page because they're double-sided.
Right near mood board.
Gotcha.
Great. So feel free to look through the kind of drill down a little bit more at your own leisure and see all these different things that people specifically called out. And then this is the top 10 for us. The mood boards are the same. So these are some images that I just pulled together that sort of spoke to one or more things that people were talking about. As we said last time, the bench swings was something not everybody knew exactly what that meant, so it's nice to have the picture. The overlook or decking or pier, they're kind of all interchangeable concepts. But people did talk a lot about green and grass and plants, so like what are some ways to do that but still have plants? And this is all just food for thought. Here are the 2 town staff interview notes from Dev. They were just nice and succinct, so I thought it'd be better for you to just have them. Since we'll be talking with town staff quite a bit, you have their notes. And then, as I suggested last time, maybe a next step for us would be to this is just a suggestion for us as a group, or maybe the architectural subcommittee comes up with 2 very basic concepts to then put out for further public input before we finalize like what kind of design we want. So if we want further public input in the future, maybe we come up with some concepts and say, which one do you like? So what I did was just the 2 most distinct pieces of feedback were people who wanted the more pier decking style, people who wanted a very grassy style. So I thought those were super distinct, and then everything in the middle could really go in either one. So just an idea. And that's it.
Excellent.
Amanda, you glided very quickly through an enormous number of hours of work.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Happy to do it.
It shows.
Yeah.
It definitely shows. Deb and Ann, thank you for your contributions.
It's fun.
Yeah. Let's take a moment to reflect on this. I'll open it up. Anyone to speak? Thoughts? Jen?
I would like to I was wondering, Deb, if you wouldn't mind diving a little bit more into your town staff interviews.
Yeah, sure.
I mean, obviously, I can read the bullets.
So if you could pick up your microphone and speak into it.
Sorry, I was asking if Dev could kind of give us an overview of your takeaways from your town staff interviews. I'm particularly jumping to volunteers are not an efficient means of developing parks. So I'm curious where that came from.
That's where we come in.
I'm just curious, like, what should we take away from this?
If you could also, just because it's a little hard to read with all the text, which page involves which town staff?
Right. Okay, so let me first start with the interview with Greg at Parks and Rec, because I think that reflected a department that expressed probably having the most responsibilities as it related to this park. Some of what my effort was in the interviews that we've conducted so far is to try to understand, kind of like, what do you do and what do you have to do with the development of the park, and then try to get a sense from them about what are the requirements based in your work that we need to consider, and then what ideas do you have. So Greg described, and I think I touched on this at the last meeting, and so I'll just underscore it. Again, I'm just reporting to you what he said. I'm not making any judgment evaluations on this. He said of their primary responsibilities, maintaining parks is a big deal, and from his description, it would really benefit his operation if we can keep maintenance in mind, that he has relatively few staff and a lot of space to cover. And when it comes to maintaining greenery, to maintaining any physical structures, just that there's a lot of limitations on what his staff is able to do with space. So, as I describe here, the main considerations that he had, because he did have a number, he prioritized things like ADA accessibility. So when we start listing what are our absolute requirements, I think it's pretty clear to all of us who've been here, ADA accessibility is an absolute requirement. It's not non-negotiable. He mentioned risk management, which I think has come up from time to time in some of our discussions, but the upkeep and maintenance. So whatever we do, just remember we have to account for how are we going to maintain it. That comes up in things like water features. So for example, if people want a fountain, are we going to have to pay for the water in the fountain? Are we going to have to pay to maintain that water and be sensitive to any risks that come from water features that people may choose to consume or do things with? Some people may remember there was once a fountain at a local park that someone decided to put some, I guess, soap into, right? And laundry detergent. Okay, so right. So that stands up as a requirement when we think about what kind of features that we want. In terms of a point that he raised about volunteers, I think what his point is, and again, I'm just going to state what his point was, and I'm not going to try to.
Are you talking Jay and Steve, or are you talking?
I'm talking about Greg. I'm only talking about Greg. Greg at the Parks and Rec. So this is the bottom sheet here. Yeah. So what Greg described is that when volunteers come forth to develop park space, he described it as not an efficient means of developing parks because the things that they may be able to provide may down the road not ultimately be helpful. So if they provide if they provide a certain kind of soil, but that soil is not the kind of soil that ultimately is beneficial for the kind of greenery that you want to grow, if I'm trying to remember his description right. Or if they're providing a certain kind of wood that is not the kind of wood that is going to ultimately be durable. And some of the things he has to be mindful of, and he mentioned the new Planet Playground, for example, is that the expectations that people have about what they want and need of a park has really changed. So in order for parks to be open, inclusive, and safe for lots of different kinds of people who are going to want to play in it, that's why you start needing not just wood chips on the ground, but you're needing other kinds of surfaces. It's not a value judgment about kids and parents. It's more about risk management and just society's expectations. So what I heard from him was not that volunteers are not helpful, but that in the design and development of parks, that it's important to go to professionals to get it designed in the right way.
Yeah.
Now, he did have something else to say about fundraising, and this is the last point that I would bring up from Greg, which is he highlighted that there are trade-offs with fundraising, which we have talked about here. Like, it takes time and money to make money. He did highlight that some efforts that he has seen being successful is things like selling name recognition for items like benches. He also mentioned that civic organizations might be a helpful place to look at, and he specifically called out the Rotary. I have not done work to validate this, but that the Rotary includes in its mission is helping to develop parks. So the extent to which we can be aware of what the mission of different civic organizations are. And when I mentioned the idea of developing a Friends of as an entity to solicit donations, he essentially said, yes, we've tried something like that, and then it went dormant during COVID, and we haven't restarted it. But it sounds like a good idea. You just have to make sure you're really specific about what you're raising the funds for. So that was my interview with Greg. Actually, let me call it one other thing. Greg, he offered that he responded to the survey and was really clear about a consideration that because there's lots of different parks in Exeter, that this park has an opportunity to stand out as something unique. And because he would argue that we already have parks in downtown that offer space for benches and grass, what is an opportunity to make this distinctive? And he brought up the idea of creating like a deck or a patio and creating like a wooden pier structure that covers most, if not all, of that space. As he described, then it limits how much they have to worry about curating the grass space. It creates a different kind of element that can run right from the street level down to the waterway.
At the proper grade.
Yes. And he just argued that something like a pier would stand out as different. So.
And when he says, I want to make sure we're using definitions properly.
Right.
A pier, to me, is something that juts out over water.
He did, yeah. So he
Is that
said
specifically what he's asking?
lot of
That's a
people
big
have
can of worms right there.
Yeah.
right.
As opposed to a deck.
Right.
Which,
So he
drew a
he literally like drew a picture for me, which looked like something that is. You could barely see it, but it means deck that covers almost the entire terrain of the current grass area. Okay. And it also includes like an overlook or something that does potentially hang over the water.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, I
So you
think
could
we'll
run
have to
beams
just,
out,
Yeah,
not
just-
have supported, right?
knowing we don't own the property over the water, so
Right.
like that's, you can get permits and stuff. It's a big effort. I've done it. I would encourage this group to not get too excited about a pier that goes over the water, just knowing our constraints, but
So, like how far? Yeah, like how, when you say that, like say.
like outside of our property line.
No, okay. So say you had something that jutted out over the top of the wall, but it was the steel beams, right?
Right.
So that how
You're-
far could you go so you could see both? I'm
You're
just from
covering,
aesthetics.
your property lines go vertical too. So
Okay, I'm asking.
Yeah, you can't build over it, yeah.
Okay.
I mean, you can with.
If we get permission, this is state
If
property.
we had permission from the
right?
state, yeah.
So.
There's then you get into wetland regulations, like the second you get,
So if
I
you-
don't know where the wetland line is.
If you
but
go over that though, but you don't put anything under it, in other words, you've got steel
if you-
going.
Yeah, you're building, it's
Still-
like building a bridge, right?
So you're not putting,
Yeah.
So
It's still
on this topic,
Still.
this is going a little bit
Yeah.
afield.
Okay, just
let's-
curious. I was
yeah.
curious about that.
Right. This
Your idea is a
this
good
is the kind of thing that I think is going to elicit lots of conversation about what our design possibilities are.
Yeah.
Right.
I have two
Yeah.
questions about the report.
We-
Well, let me, if I can.
We'll take your questions.
I
in a
talked
moment.
about Greg
Yeah.
really briefly because it was an extensive conversation, but there's really very few highlights on Public Works. Public Works said they are collaborators, like all the town offices work together, and they pitch in to help the Parks and Rec on things like maintaining trees. Okay, but they said other than that, they appreciated the update. They really feel like they don't have a lot to contribute that impacts them. In terms of requirements for the park, they said avoid tall trees. They said to be considerate of storm water runoff with whatever decision we use. Don't use a lot of asphalt. Don't use fertilizer. They talked about being aware of flooding, which is, I think it is a consideration that we'll have to bring in, that should come up later. And I'll bring this up just because it was mentioned, to not make the park too comfortable, because, and this was an inference that I'm making, you don't want to attract unhoused people to a property. I don't want to, I think that there's a lot to unpack in that point there. But the main requirement that they had were the things, or the main requirements that they had about things that directly impact them in terms of maintenance, and a lot of that was about trees. They also said that they're responsible for the sidewalk. So whatever we do, be aware of, don't do stuff that damages the sidewalk. Besides that, they did surface the possibility about us engaging Fish and Game for whatever we might want to do. And then their only ideas for the park included something that we've heard before, which is include some kind of signage kiosk or something that describes the location, the history. Bill went into some depth about the history of all the different mills that have existed over time. So they have very few explicit requirements that directly impact them. And that's what we've done so far. Know that Bill and I are talking to Russ to schedule a meeting, which might happen as soon as tomorrow.
Okay.
And then outside of the
That's
property,
Rustine,
yes,
Rustine, Town manager.
that's right. And outside of that, I know that we have members of this committee who've talked about having had conversations with property owners on either side. I haven't had a thorough conversation, although I've talked to people who work in both of those buildings. I'd like to circle back to talk to them, but I don't want to get in the way. We've heard enough that I think that we could move forward. If we continue to have time between this and the next meeting, then I suspect I'll engage them.
I want to hit that and then hit yours, or maybe hit yours and then hit this issue of the abutters. So let's take your questions first, and then we'll go to the abutters.
Devin, you mentioned there are two things in your report. What group was the Friends of whatever that went defunct during COVID?
Yeah, Friends of Parks and Rec. Parks and Rec has a group that was just getting started before COVID hit.
Did it have a particular subject area or emphasis like sports or nature or?
You know what? I don't remember that coming up, but we can always go back and ask.
And my other question is you have a Department of Interior phrase here. Was that a source of funding?
That's right.
Okay, and is there a precedent for that, that the town has received money from the Department of Interior?
What my notes from that conversation reflect is that Greg described there being money for parks and things like the Department
In
of,
that department.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. I can't recall, and I don't know if other people can, whether the town of Exeter in the last decade or so has gotten funding from
Just a
Interior, but
suggestion.
at the very least, it was a suggestion, yeah.
The Department of Interior has, and the Department of Agriculture have numerous grant opportunities, from invasive species abatement, to actual park building opportunities. Any staff, any comments there? No, okay. Did I say anything untoward or incorrect? I hope not untoward, and I hope not less incorrect.
I have
Yeah.
one more thing. and
Yes.
We're going to move on to the abutters. I am one of several people who are very concerned. The wall goes, it parallels the river. It quits before the property line, and there's falling down huge drywall stone masonry. And then the two abutting properties have rock foundations,
Could you speak into
have rock foundations.
Speak into it.
I'm not an engineer, but I've done a lot of building and planning that look dubious. So I hope you bring that up when you talk with the abutters. And just for the future, it will probably need to be engineered before much design is developed to a point where it's ready to build.
I'll touch on the
with that,
abutters. Yeah, I'll
yeah.
touch on the abutters issue very quickly, and then I'll open it up again. So abutters, does the town have any, I'm looking out this way specifically, does the town have any concerns about Dev or any other committee members talking with the town? Do you wish to be present? Are there any issues? Yeah. Okay.
Just talk, right?
Yeah. Yes.
I have some concerns about the one building.
You have concerns about the building, or you have concerns about talking with the abutter?
Oh, no.
Yeah.
Okay.
I have concerns.
Yeah. It may, I don't know if we want to take the time now. If we don't, which is fine, let's correspond after this so I can gather what are the questions that people would want asked during those abutter conversations. I'll follow up with you, Mary, to make sure that I get clarity on what I'm asking. Okay, yeah, sounds good.
So as a general assignment, if you have a question that you would like to ask an abutter, send it to me and I'll send it off to you. Or I'll send it to the three of you? Dev. Okay.
So
I'll
we
send it
send our
to.
questions to you.
Yes, send your questions to me.
Okay.
So I'm the clearinghouse, so that we don't end up having a 91A violation by accident. Yes, Nico?
Can I just follow up on the abutters? Once you get the questions from the other committee members, can maybe you and the chair can circle back with staff, because my concern is, are you representing the committee or are you representing the town? And so I'd want to just sort that out with the various stakeholders here at the town. And it very well could be maybe you going out with a member of the town. I don't know that yet, but let's sort that out once you get the questions and are ready to go out.
Yeah,
So that
and that's exactly the concern that I wish to raise.
Yeah, okay, thanks.
Okay. So, Dev, do you think that, committee members, please, do you think you can get your questions in fairly short order to me so that I can forward them to Dev, so that Dev can work with the town? And Nico, would you be the person to speak with?
I'd start with the town manager.
Town manager. And get something on the, at least interviews on scheduled, if not completed, before the next meeting on February 20th. You think you can do all that? Awesome. Wow. Thank you.
Deadline driven.
Okay, deadline driven. Okay, well, I'll give you a deadline. Okay. All right. Other questions? We're doing okay on time? Yep. Other questions? Comments on this? Okay, then, hearing, oh, yes, Keith?
No, I'm just curious what the next step is.
Many next steps. So, one is to go home and review this. That's a first step. We all should ponder this, read it carefully, see what questions we have, and bring those back to the next committee meeting. That's my assessment of an assignment for all of us for the next committee meeting. That's the first thing. More talking. Is there, that's a good question you asked, what's our next job? Are there other people we need to be talking with to finish our first phase of public input?
Yes.
Good God, I love it. As if I knew the answer.
Well,
Can you speak into the microphone, please?
As I understand it, the town.
Right into it.
The town is making additional efforts to bring various departments and committees together where they have common interest and/or jurisdiction. And I would like to see contact made, that's passive. I would like to see us contact, and you can help me out, the Sustainability Committee, the Tree Committee, the historic folks, you've covered the
We've
park.
definitely done the historic folks with Bill. He gave our presentation last time. He went and did a lot of work. I just want to put a plug in for Bill.
Okay.
Okay,
So-
but he hasn't done a presentation.
He did.
Here?
Here?
I
No,
listened to
no,
it.
he didn't.
Uh-uh.
He didn't.
He hasn't.
He didn't give it, no, he didn't.
He did. I'll find the video for you.
Yeah, he did. He said that basically,
There wasn't much.
Yeah, that's
And
what he
he
said.
spent a lot of time, and there was no battles, there was no, remember, he gave a presentation.
Yeah, I
He
remember
sat there,
that.
yeah.
Indigenous.
Yeah.
It was last meeting, wasn't it?
Correct.
I
No.
promise,
Before.
it
It
happened.
was a short
Yes.
presentation.
It was no PowerPoint, but he
No.
presented.
He did.
I'll send
Some
you the
of
link.
us may have faulty memories. I believe them and I hear you. I just don't remember it, so
I'll
we'll
get
go
you guys
back.
the link.
Yo, this is not in the minutes.
Yeah,
No,
we'll go back
it's not in the minutes.
But again, I don't. Oh, yeah. So I don't remember
no,
him
it was
producing
not
any kind
last
of written
meeting.
report. I think it was just verbal.
He just very briefly touched upon the fact that
Very
that
briefly.
He said there wasn't much.
he had been the contact person with the
Yeah.
historical
Right,
society.
but that was not his report. As I understood it, his report would be much more substantial. He has not finished it. He has
Right.
told me that he has not finished it.
Yeah.
Oh,
Okay,
report and
yeah.
a presentation.
Yeah.
This
And
is-
work-
Maybe he
yes.
could call it a status update.
Status update, absolutely. He gave a status update.
This
yes.
right now
Yeah.
is happening is why we put the new arrangement. It's great to have this sort of roundtable discussion. So I'll reframe my question. I would like us to formally contact the related departments or commissions,
Okay, so let's
And I
start.
can-
let's-
I can
we-
help
we've
make
got
a
committees,
correct?
and you said sustainability, tree, historic, I believe there's maybe one other, river?
River, and there may be some, as a newcomer, I'm not even aware of.
Okay.
conservation,
But those four for sure.
both of us are.
Conservation, whatever Kristen Murphy's in charge of. Are you making a list? This is great.
Yeah, I am.
Should be
Yeah.
here.
Yeah,
Be nice.
and what I would, I don't know what the mode of communication would be, but I would like to have their input appear in the final record, just as the Public Works and the Parks are in the final record. And I don't know how formal that needs to be, but maybe they could even make a presentation at some point.
Why would we bring in, say, the tree committee at this point, when we don't even know if there's going to be trees in our design?
Well, they may have a grand plan, and they may have some suggestions for us.
I think.
It's true, we
I
don't,
think we need to limit the number of cooks in this kitchen.
yeah, we've had this discussion
Yes.
before.
Yeah,
you could speak into
I
the
couldn't agree more.
We're not going to get anywhere if we muddy things up like this.
I think it's enriching. I would like,
I think it's slow.
Yeah, I think it's wheel spinning in that case. That's just my opinion. And you're entitled to yours, absolutely.
yeah, I'm just promoting greater collaboration among committees, departments, commissions that already have projects underway or as goals. And they can help us if they have explicit goals and projects underway. They may want to use the site for some of their projects.
So, to that point, do we have folks on this committee who might be representatives? Because to this point, Mary, it was like 1 or 2 meetings ago when we were supposed to go out talking to the public. I sent that meeting to, I think it was you, Nico, who responded, and you had suggested 2 specific committees, one of which was the Conservation Committee, which
I am already on.
yeah, okay.
As am I.
And like, let the record show, I totally forgot about the meeting, and I was supposed to go. But I guess what I'm wondering is if we have some folks who are representatives of some of the committees, because only 2 were recommended to me, but it sounds like we might have representation from others. It might be worth, if not now, then maybe as an agenda item for next time when we're finishing up when we're finishing up our reporting on this and starting to make some design decisions, we can just talk to folks who have seats in some of these other committees that they can report back to us about, what kind of alignment or what questions that might be raised.
Yeah, and the other piece is the last thing I said, which is they may have projects underway or goals that would be manifest, and they're actually participating in this park design. And not that we
Make
would
sure you
have,
speak in-
not that we would have them, we might have them to a meeting. Like I said, I'm not going to comment on the mode or the timing, but it's a way of collaborating. Usually gets a little messy, and it can take longer. But in the end, it's my experience that we end up with a richer, to make a more popular, more supportable document. And that's why I'm advocating for us to reach out and invite them. Because I think it can save time and produce a more quality report in the end.
So I think there's kind of formal and informal ways of doing it. I think you're asking us to do it formally, and I think maybe we vote on it whether we want to do it formally. And if not, I think that as a town resident, if you want to go to one of their meetings and sit like Keith did and ask that question and then bring it back as part of your knowledge, that's another informal way of doing it. But I would request that we decide, because the second time it's been brought up, and Mary is, wants to hear a decision on this, it sounds like, whether we should involve the other committees, because we did have this conversation last meeting as well, briefly.
Okay. Yes, Nico?
If I could just offer something. So in as part of your committee, Steve's on the tree committee. Dave chairs the conservation committee. Keith's on the conservation committee. Jen's on the planning board. And I'm the select board rep to the tree committee.
Is Bill on the historic?
Bill's on the Historic District Commission.
Yep.
Kristen Murphy, who works with Dave, is staff to the Sustainability Committee, the Tree Committee, and the Conservation Committee. So I think informally, we've got all these opportunities for folks to be talking, about what's going on. Additionally, when the select board meets, at the end of our meetings, we all go through what we've talked about at our respective meetings. So I think if there's any opportunity for like an informal collaboration, that can be done very easily with what you have here. There may come a time where you want to formally invite a member of a committee who's not represented here at a later meeting. But I think that, Mary's right, and the collaboration is important. But I think to Dave and Keith's point, we've got folks here, and we have access to folks that could be here that are staff in a more informal way as we move forward. Is that just my 2 cents?
Thank you. If I may, I think we have a lot of informal ties already, except to and I will mangle this, my apologies, the River Committee, District Commission?
And I'm the select board rep to that, so.
So we have a lot of ties.
Connected the dots.
Then we have a lot of ties. So I believe that we can get the input that you are looking for without anything
And the
more formal.
artifact of that would be, like, your notes from your interviews with the three aforementioned, it would show up in a short bullet point list that there was an interview made or a visit
Do
made
you want
to
to
a meeting.
make the motion that we do that? I think that's the time.
Okay. Give me a minute.
Okay.
Other people tell me what you think is the best mode, including Nico, because you gave it some thought, to end up with a little more information about what those various groups would have to say about the park.
Sounds like you like the interview style, so maybe you want to move for interviews?
Dev?
Yeah. I'm wondering if you can make a motion that between now and the next meeting, that people who are either on the committee and or I forget how to call you guys. Like
He's a rep.
And a representative to the committees who attend this. If they might be able to provide kind of like a briefing. Like provide some notes based on if you have a formal committee meeting between now and our next meeting, if you can get a pulse check, and if not, can you just make sure that you've connected with someone on the meeting? But I guess that's would be my recommendation is a motion to between now and the next meeting have people who represent the interests of the various committees that might be connected to make sure that they are aware and informed, and that we are aligned and in good communication about what we're doing and what ideas they have. And if we do that, which could be right now nothing, but if we do that, and that I think gives us some substance to get into the public record with this.
Okay, I would just add to that, it's great that we have overlap with people here on other committees. So I would like to add to what you said by having those of you who are on those committees to let your committees know that someone will visit with them. And if you could bring back a report of what in your list of wishes for your various committees or mandates you'd like to see show up in the park plan. Because you've mentioned.
So we're trying to
you're
get
on
this to a vote. Can you try to
Excuse me,
get into a
mention-
sentence?
Okay, it's a two-part thing.
Thank you.
I move that those of us who are on various other committees make a short report about their committee work as it has bearing on the park.
Okay.
And the second part is that those committees who are not represented on this advisory board, like the River Committee,
They are. Well, yeah.
that you do your interviews.
Okay.
And-
So we have a motion on the floor. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Dev seconds. Discussion?
My discussion would be, I think the expectations that you're looking for, Mary, when you talk about report, I mean, in my mind, what might be sufficient is like an accounting, like a couple of bullet points. It doesn't have to be, this is a report. I'm not expecting this from everybody who's on a committee. I'm expecting kind of like the way that our minutes are drawn. There's a couple of bullet points. Some people might have more to report, but I'm hearing in this discussion that what you're really looking for is what are your requirements and what are your ideas respective of your committee related to our park.
Yes, and I'll just give one example, the River Committee, which hasn't come up. What should we or should we not do that advances their interests, which is also in accordance with the Great Bay, various governmental and non-governmental goals for the recovery of the Great Bay, which includes the wetlands and the riparian zones. So, I mean, it gets really complicated, but I'm trying not to make it complicated right now.
No further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
I,
I'll do
Aye.
it. Yeah.
Yep. All opposed, say nay.
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 The ayes carry. Are we done with the public input subcommittee update?
So,
Then an update on draft list of requirements. Mary emailed me that this would be very quick. We've got 15 minutes. I'm hoping to get through the rest of the agenda in that time.
Yeah, we unfortunately haven't had a lot of time to collaborate. I mean, I think in my mind, and this goes to the next steps question, you know, as a designer, I think we need to quickly agree on what are our goals for this project? What are our two concepts? Start hashing it out. I think the list of requirements needs to be simple. I think there's a lot we could do here. It's a very small site. We're going to have very limited funding. So I think we need to be realistic. And I agree with Greg that this needs to be unique. And that would be one of my goals. So I would say, and we haven't talked about this, but I would love to maybe as an agenda item for the next meeting, have everyone kind of think about what the goals are, and I could draft, you know, I kind of already have some in my head, which are, you know, it's accessible, it gets people to the river, you know, we're getting people and we're creating a unique experience that you can't have anywhere else in Exeter. But I would love to, I think we need to kind of agree on some concrete goals so that as we have discussions, we can go back and say, does this address our goals? And it'll help us make decisions.
If I may, thank you very much.
Yeah.
My experience in several endeavors is that goal setting is extremely important, more important than people realize. And this would be a very valuable exercise. So I'm heartily in favor. I don't think we need to. Yeah.
there is something that I brought up with you that Jen's been really busy. We will be presenting some goals.
Just put it right in front of your face, like this. There you go.
We'll be presenting some
No,
goals.
I mean really, right in front of your face. There you go.
We'll be presenting goals to the select board.
Oh, you will at the next meeting?
No.
No,
No.
ultimately.
Oh,
I think that's one of our,
committee.
is
Yeah,
that one of our
committee.
charges, is to?
yeah, of course.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Absolutely.
yeah.
And I hope, I'm going to ask Jen to say a little bit about the design process that ends in construction. And I'd like to ask the town reps to say a little bit about, because I think we're unclear, we're going to send something on paper to the select board. And at the far end, something's going to be built. So in between that, I suppose, the town will hire an engineer, possibly a landscape architect, to draw up plans. I don't know if it's going to be
If we
built.
write a warrant article that the select board supports and we get a vote to get the money for it, yes.
Okay, Jen, could you do a quick synopsis of design, development, final construction? Like several iterations, just a quick.
Right, well, I mean, I think we're kind of jumping ahead, though. Like,
Yes.
to Amanda's point, we need to get to goals and concept to bring to the select board, to bring to the town, to
Right.
bring to funding, and then we'll start design development.
Yes.
So I don't know if it matters, like, what the process is between design development and construction documents at this point.
I
So
think the only
here's-
thing we do is come up with a concept, a very vague, unrefined, unconstruction-y, unarchitect-y concept,
But realistic.
but realistic and
feasible.
nice and
Yes.
thought out, but not
Yeah.
like with measurements and, and we bring that to the select board and we
Maybe a
say,
few measurements.
do you got, okay, basically, I mean, like, not like how many nails and,
Yeah.
and
Thank you.
it was nice, we liked it, but not how many boards we need, right?
No.
Sorry.
So
And
I-
we bring that to the select board and we say, do you guys support putting this on a warrant?
Yeah.
And then if they support putting it on a warrant and everybody else in town supports putting on a warrant, and we find out if the town wants to pay for it, all that other stuff happens.
The contracting with designers and
Perhaps-
engineers.
That's like
So-
2027, 2028.
Here's where my hang-up is. This is great. I mean, we've got the start, and I think we're going to set goals soon. How do we manage the goals when some of them might seem risky, not feasible, too expensive? Help me out on this, because those filters are on for me. I can't turn them off.
So let's take a moment. Dave, I'm going to ask you, if you might, explain the capital improvement budget process and how this might fit in. Would that be okay?
I understand that.
I don't think you do. I don't think you do. I guess, yeah. The timeline and how the process works.
Okay, we do the capital improvement program. It's a 6-year rolling document. It plans out 6 years. So the current one that's been adopted by the planning board, it's the planning board's document. It's not a funding document. It doesn't provide any funding. That's done by the select board, budget committee, voters, so that's a whole different process. But the capital improvement program is a 6-year rolling plan identifying capital improvements that are anticipated or desired over the next 6-year timeframe. We are going to start working on the 2025 to the 2031 plan this year in 25. Every year we put out a directive in about April to the department head saying, and others that are, interested, if there are, committees that have one or something like that, to get us ideas, by like, usually in May, mid-May, we meet, we talk about ideas. You can have concepts at that point. And then the deadline for the document is, I think, the 3rd week in June. And then that gets reviewed by the planning board, goes to a public hearing, usually in the 1st week of August, then the 2nd public hearing and the 2nd hearing of August, and they formally adopt it. And then once it's adopted, it doesn't mean funding's attached to it, but there are estimates, there are concepts in there. And then it gets passed on to the budget review committee. Well, first the town manager. The town manager looks at his budget, looks holistically, takes things out of the capital improvement project, the plant program, and inserts them into the budget for the following year, which would be 2026 in this case, what he feels he could handle. Then it goes to the budget review committee. They can pull things out, add things as based on their recommendations. Then it goes to the select board, and they can do the same thing, and then they decide what goes on to the warrant, and eventually it goes to the warrant, and the voters decide if something gets approved. Is that what you were?
That's it.
I do understand that, and I have followed it in the last 3 years I've lived here and have friends on the budget committee, and so this is not foreign to me. My question remains, and I had an idea that has to do with how far do we go, goals down to specificity, at what point does the call for a designer, an engineer, and so on come in? Does that get developed over time on this rolling budget? Assuming there's some estimates. For example, we're building a police station fire department out on Epping Road. Could you chronicle how it went from we need a new building to where?
Can I just
not do it
interrupt?
in
I
here?
think we had a pretty good time frame that sort of outlined from now until
The designer
construction
won't
that
come
we've
until
already gone
after the
over.
warrant.
Yeah.
So you're still a year out from the
Right.
conversation we
Yeah.
need to have today. You're a year out. You gotta
Oh, a
back it up.
year.
Yeah.
Over a
Okay.
year, 1 year
Okay.
minimum, March
Okay.
2026,
Okay, so it's
minimum.
the intersection of the design development, of which we are sort of a part.
Concept
and-
development.
Yes, concept development.
Yes.
And the budget.
So,
And that's what I was missing. And
So,
I think I have it now.
Okay.
Okay.
may I make a comment?
Yes, please.
So tonight, which of these concepts does anybody like? Like the whole pier idea, to me, is very appealing. So I'm sorry to jump ahead, but that sounds to me like that would be awesome. Like we can get the ADA grade, we can get benches along the side as we go towards it that are built into the sides. We can avoid the issues with the right-of-ways that we have on each side. We can put trees in the middle with a hole. We can do a water feature if needed. Any other thing can be added. These pictures of the swing can go on a pier. I love those. I think that those were awesome. This whole setup here looks really good. To me, something like that, and I mentioned about over the water, I was unfamiliar with what you were saying, but it'd be nice to have a couple of beams that stuck out a little bit. It'd be awesome to be able to look up both ways the river, So I'm just, as you know, my patience is not as good as Dave's. So I'm wanting to say that, let's move forward. So that concept looks really good, and I would like to get people's opinion on that and see what they thought about that. That would also be very unique, as you mentioned, Jen, to our downtown. I think that would be good. So I'm in favor of that, and I wanted to float in that idea and show people. I like that. That could be on a pier, that swing with the dad and his daughter there.
So, in respect to time, that's an excellent suggestion. I think for our next committee meeting is to talk about major directions, goals,
And concepts.
and
Design
concepts.
moves, yeah.
So is the concept a deck or a pier? Is the concept grassy, as a cut down? And so an assignment for next time, please, come ready to discuss.
And feel free to use the graphic organizer.
I like it. Very strong. Very
So
strong.
helpfully done.
Or your own.
What's the graphic organizer?
It's behind you, sorry.
Oh, that.
Yeah.
Oh, it's like an outline, a structure, okay.
Okay,
cool.
so is it okay to move on to, that addresses the blank canvas item on the agenda, which was, thank you very much. You hit the agenda item for me.
I think a unique feature, like Jen said, would be just awesome. Something different, somebody says, hey, have you seen this deal in Exeter? Let's go take a ride over there and see what's going on.
Or something people just are walking down the street and they're like, what is this?
What is
Like,
this?
It's like
Yeah.
a found,
Yeah, have some
Thing.
tables out there,
Yeah.
people could eat. That's a big thing, is having a place to eat. That would help businesses. That'd be all good.
If it's all right, I'll move on to the last item, which is the warrant article establishing donations for an account. We don't need a warrant article. Nico, did you want to say anything, or want me to summarize?
Go ahead. Corey Stevens, the finance director, did what here,
Yeah,
presentation.
Corey Stevens did a presentation at the select board meeting on Monday. Essentially, there's a 1994 warrant article that was passed by the voters that gives the town authority to establish an account for private donations. I will nominate, if you so accept, Ann to work with me, and we'll work with Corey on the details of such a donation fund.
Okay.
So details such as who gets a letter, those are details. They are details.
They are. I remember the conversation.
Yeah, exactly. So who gets a letter, and so we would be detail folks, and we take that away from the committee, and we come back with a suggestion, probably in March, but meet in February. Yeah. If it's okay with everyone, I don't think we need a motion, but
Yep.
Ann and me, very good.
Go forth.
Okay, that is 5:59. We are adjourned.
You did. Nicely done.
Thank you for tuning in to Exeter TV. Exeter TV is the town's public and government access channels, available on Comcast channels 6 and 22. Channel 6 is your channel. If you have an idea for a program, want to host your own talk show, or submit a film, we're here to get your content on television. On Channel 22, we bring you live and replay coverage of government meetings and other town updates. A third channel, Blue Hawk Media, is operated by SAU 16 and can be found on Channel 8, with all your school sports, events, and meetings. You can watch Exeter TV online at exeternh.tv, Apple TV, and on Roku. Find us on social media for extra content. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and hit the bell to get notified about live streams and new content. Tune in to our platforms every other Friday to watch the Exeter Biweekly Report with recaps of recent events, updates from town departments, and messages from nonprofits in your area. If you head to our website, exeternh.tv, we invite you to sign up to our newsletter to receive monthly updates about new content, upcoming meetings, and more. We'd like to thank you for taking the time to watch Exeter TV and hope that you tune in to our other content as well.